Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar, How to Build a Business Case for Online Employee Training. My name is Jessica. I'm on the marketing team with BizLibrary, and I'll be the host for today's session. Before we get started, I want to go through just a couple of housekeeping items. First, what you should see on your screen, on the left-hand side of the screen, this is the webinar viewer. So this is where you'll see the content that we're sharing with you today. On the right-hand side of the screen, this is the control panel. So this is where you can join the audio portion of today's webinar, and you can also communicate with us through the question box. The default mode for the control panel is for it to collapse. If you want to open the control panel back up, simply click the orange box with the white arrow on it, and it'll expand for you. All of today's attendees are in listen-only mode. You can join the audio portion of today's webinar either through the teleconference line. You can also listen through your speakers. If you're going to listen through your speakers, I recommend either using a pair of headphones or a headset to get the best audio quality. I'd like to keep things pretty informal, so if you have any questions or discussion points, feel free to send those over through the question box that's located within the control panel. I like to weave the questions in as it relates to what we're discussing in the webinar, and then I'll leave some time at the end for Q&A as well. I am recording today's session, so I'll make a link to the webinar recording as well as the slides and follow-up information available at the end of today on our blog after today's session. So that's bizlibrary.com/bizblog. Also, if you'd like to download the slides for today's webinar, I put a link to those in the chat panel on the right-hand side of your screen. You should have also received a link to the slides in the reminder email that you received this morning. Happy to say that today's session has been approved for 1 hour CE credit for all of you HR professionals attending. I'll make a link to the completion certificate available at the end of today's webinar. I'll also send a follow-up email that'll include a link to the certificate within 24 hours. Most important thing is the program ID number or the activity ID number. That's what you'll need to record with HRCI. If you'd like more information on certification or recertification, I encourage you to visit hrci.org. Again, my name is Jessica. I'm on the marketing team with BizLibrary. I graduated from the University of Missouri Columbia with a degree in journalism. I've been working in the training and development industry now for about 5 years. I'm very active in social media, so I tweet on behalf of BizLibrary at BizLibrary, and also have my own account at Jess L. Petrie. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn, so I like to share a lot of articles, discussions around human resources, training and development, and marketing. So if you're on either of those social networks, would love it if you'd reach out and connect. Presenting with us today is Chris Osborne. Chris is the VP of Marketing for BizLibrary. He's also worked in a consulting capacity with a Paris-based leadership development consulting firm where he helped organizations design and implement leadership and executive development programs. He's been performing learning, development, and training functions formally since 2000 and informally for organizations since 1987. Prior to Chris's move into the business sector, he practiced law in the areas of labor, employment, and business litigation for over 12 years. He graduated from WashU School of Law with honors in 1987. Chris is also active in social media, so you can find him on Twitter at Chris Osborne STL, and he's also active on LinkedIn, so I'm sure he'd love it if you'd reach out and connect as well. All right, just to give you a little bit of background on BizLibrary. BizLibrary is a leading provider of online employee training and e-learning solutions. The award-winning content library contains more than 7,000 online employee training videos covering every business training topic. So that includes communication skills, leadership and management, sales and customer service, compliance training, desktop computer skills, and more. Additionally, BizLibrary's LMS, or Learning Management System, and social learning technology platform help HR and training leaders improve and manage employee learning. All right, so enough about us. I have 2 poll questions to kick things off for today, so you should see the poll pop up on your screen in just a moment. So this first one is the most common objection from senior executives about learning initiatives is it A, training and development does not impact the bottom line, B, the cost of training is more than the benefit, C, things are fine the way they are, or D, something else?
Hey Jessica, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I am well. I'm well.
Good to hear.
Yeah, well this is always an interesting webinar for us. I'm always fascinated by the answers to all of the polls that you put together, and this is no exception. And we recognize that there could be, you could see all of these objections in one way or another, but just let us know what the most common one is. And we have a fair number of people saying something else. Let us know what that is. If we get a theme in the responses, we'll certainly add it to the poll going out. We like to learn from our attendees at these webinars too. Interesting. Yeah, this is, I recognize too that, it could, if the cost is more than the benefit, which seems to be doing gangbusters business in this poll, it could be a whole range of reasons for that. So interesting stuff there.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and close it out and share the results. And I mean, really a lot of what we're going to be talking about today is going to be relevant for building a case, whether it's you're launching a new online training program or you're launching a new learning initiative, or perhaps you're really launching an initiative. The key elements and principles that we're going to talk about today could be applied to any of those. All right, so it looks like for the results today, 48% cost of training is more than the benefit, 19% training and development doesn't impact the bottom line, 17% said things are fine the way they are or good with the status quo, 17% said something else.
Yeah, this is, I'm not too surprised by this, and one of the things that we continue to see is as our clients and prospects, have to get approval from senior leadership to move forward with the training program is, these types of objections, and that's a big part of building a business case is really laying the foundation for moving around these. So interesting stuff. It's a fascinating set of results.
All right, so then the first poll question was related to senior executives' objection. This next one is about change in your organization. So in your organization, what are your biggest challenges with change? Is it A, timing? This just isn't a good time, which seems to be all the time. B, budget. So you just don't have the budget or resources available to you. C, lack of senior leadership support. D, lack of employee buy-in or participation. Or E, something else.
Yeah, and again, if it's something else, let us know what that is in question panel or chat, and definitely address those. And like I said, we recognize that it could be all of these or some combination. We just are looking for what's the biggest challenge as you see it. Hit my speaker there, or my microphone there.
I thought maybe you were doing a mic check.
No, I wasn't trying to. I know you can hear me because you're talking to me.
Right.
Yeah, kind of interesting here too. Again, we got two answers that are kind of dominating. And if I remember the last time we did this, these are the same two answers that were at the top the last time as well.
Yep, I'll go ahead and close it out, share the results. We've got 33% said budget, 30% lack of employee buy-in or participation, 15% lack of senior leadership support, 15% something else, and again, let us know what that is, and then 7% said timing. It's just not a good time.
Yeah, and I'll take these in kind of reverse order. Timing, and if you're waiting for the right time to change or the right time to launch a training program, you're going to be waiting a long time because there's never, ever a good time for change. And I recognize that budget and lack of senior leadership support probably go hand in hand. If you've got senior leadership support, you're probably going to be able to get your budget approved. So again, this is a big part of what we're going to talk about today. And this lack of employee buy-in or participation, this is a common theme with organizations that struggle to get training and development programs launched effectively, and it's a common theme with organizations that struggle with change generally. So interesting stuff. Yeah. So I don't think this group is unusual in experiencing these problems.
Right, agree. All right, so there's some main things that we're going to cover today. Chris, I'm going to let you run us through those. But basically, there's 5 core elements that we think that you should include in your business case.
And hopefully that's displaying on the screen now. Is that correct?
Nope, don't see it. No, almost.
Maybe I should share my screen.
Now, yep, good to go.
You got it? Okay, good. Technology, it's a wonderful thing when you know how to use it, right? Okay, so Jessica is spot on. We want to talk to you about the 5 core elements of a business case. We've also added an element to today's session. We're going to actually show you sort of what a business case physically looks like. So when you present one to senior management, we're going to give you a little bit of an idea of exactly how it looks like. But when you're building your business case, these are the 5 pieces that you have to put in it. And then we're going to talk to you as well about anticipating and overcoming the most common objections from your senior executives, because your business case has to anticipate those things and be prepared for them. But the 5 elements: you need to do a scenario analysis. You have to do a cause and effect analysis for each of the benefits that you're expecting. You have to do a key performance indicator for each benefit. This 4th one is hugely important, and we're going to talk about this actually first when we do the elements. It's the risks to the status quo. And then last, you have to make sure that the learning and development program that you are advocating is aligned with organizational goals. And we've got a very specific way to phrase that, I think, or frame that element when we get to that. Okay, hold on. Get my screen to cooperate. There we go. Yep, there we are. Okay, so this is a chart that we borrowed from an article that appeared in CLO magazine back in December of 2010. And it was written by Patty and Jack Phillips. And Mr. Phillips' name may be familiar to you. Those of you who are familiar with the Kirkpatrick Phillips methodology for measuring the impact of training. It's titled How Executives View Learning Metrics. And this is really, I think, a telling bit of information. And I haven't seen much that says a lot of this has changed. I haven't seen any research that tells me that much in this space has changed. But on the first column on the left, this is, according to the executives that participated in this study, this was the rank order in which the executives said, this is what's most important to me. In the 3rd column, that's the Kirkpatrick Phillips level. And you'll see that the executives want to see the impact of the program. That's their most important piece. The far right-hand column says how many organizations are actually providing that measurement. So there's a big disconnect. Only 8% organizations get there, and that I keep seeing data that tells me that's still pretty much true. The second piece is value, which is the element that Mr. Phillips added to the Kirkpatrick model, but only 4% of organizations are doing that. And then the 6th most important element to executives was activity. That's not even a part of the Kirkpatrick Phillips methodology, but 94% of organizations are doing that measurement. So we do spend time tracking people's participation in training, but it's not really that important to executives. They really want to see that impact and value. And that, at its core, gets to the importance of building a business case that speaks to the impact and value of what we're trying to do. And it's that vocabulary that we have to begin to understand, and it's that vocabulary that we have to begin to use in order to get the attention of people in the C-suite, our chief executive officer and our chief financial officer, the people that can make decisions and influence where money is going to be spent. This is data that was pulled from a really great bit of research conducted by Burson by Deloitte. It was published just a couple of years ago. And the thing that I loved about this information is it linked bottom line business benefits to organizations with a demonstrably strong learning culture and compared those organizations to their peers. And in these 6 key business areas, organizations with strong learning cultures outperformed their peers. In innovation, in productivity, love that one, 37% more productive, customer service, quality, skills, more prepared to meet future demand. Now, doesn't that make perfect sense? But look at this last one. We saved kind of the best for last on the chart, but they're 17% more profitable. You want to get your CEO and CFO's attention? This is the kind of information that links in a very direct way training, employee development, to bottom line benefit. This is what we're talking about. When you go back to that chart before in terms of impact and value. This is business impact. This is what chief executive officers, people that occupy the C-suite organizations are looking for. And this has to be ultimately the focus of building a business case. This is how we have to begin thinking about and talking about the end result of the training programs that we're so passionate about. I mean, for all of us here, you wouldn't be here talking to us today if you weren't passionate about employee development and training. It's something that I've been passionate about for a long time. So intuitively, these things are, I look at this information as sort of like, well, of course this is true. If my employees are trained and they understand how to work more effectively, more efficiently, they've got better skills, all of these things are natural extensions of that, right? This all makes total and complete intuitive sense to me. And for years and years, I assumed that other people in the organization saw the same connection that I did. It was shocking to me to realize that people don't. People at the C-suite have to make this type of connection, these very direct bottom line benefits, and we have to begin to put our business case together, linking training program to those types of benefits. So these, again, just to repeat real quickly, these are the elements of this business case. So there's a scenario analysis, and we're going to get into that, and so we're going to get into each one of these in detail. Then a cause-effect analysis, which gets the features. You're linking each of the features of your program to specific operational effects. Then the key performance indicators for each benefit. In other words, I'm going to describe for you what success is going to look like, cause and effect. And then number 3, I'm going to tell you how we're going to know about success. Then we're going to talk about the risks of the status quo. In other words, if we don't do anything, here's the risks to the organization, and then you're going to prove and show alignment with high-level organizational goals. All right, we're going to start with the risks of the status quo. And this gets right back to a couple of the poll questions that we started with. Organizations and people, for that matter, naturally gravitate to the status quo. Change is difficult. Change is unknown. It's uncertain. Change for a lot of people and for most organizations represents risk. Well, if we do things differently, do we know what's going to happen? It's not predictable. It's not certain. We're moving into uncharted waters. We don't know how things are going to look if we adopt a different process or we market a different product, or change is difficult for organizations. If you are bought into and you're determined to move forward with the training program, you've already done this. In your mind, emotionally and intellectually, you've gone way beyond this. You know that if we don't adopt this training program, that continuing to do things the way we've been doing them isn't a good thing for the company. You see the need for improvement. It's clear to you that we have to do better at recruiting. We have to do better at new manager training. We have to do better in sales. Whatever the area is, you see the challenge. It's clear as a bell to you, but to a lot of people in the organization, it will not be. So this is a really important element of the business case that you need to be prepared to articulate very clearly early on as you begin to build your business case before you sit down formally to present it. And these are some questions to ask as you begin to think this through. What could happen to the company's bottom line? Okay? So if we're determined to increase market share, if we don't do a better job of retaining customers and bringing in new customers, what happens to us? Could the company lose customers or market share if we don't improve our performance in those areas? Could some future costs be avoided if the investment in a learning technology platform or training is made today? There's a whole range of possible questions. These are just questions to get you started, but really think carefully about the status quo. Where are you today? What would happen if you don't change? Is the ongoing circumstances or the ongoing mode of operations going to take your organization where you want it to be. Okay, this is another element that you can be. These are some more data points that you can begin to use as you start to identify the risks of the status quo. We already talked to you about innovation, profitability. According to ATD, used to be ASTD, companies with comprehensive training programs have 218% higher income per employee. So status quo. Well, we're going to have less income per employee. We can increase the income per employee. They have a 24% higher profit margin, and they have, for publicly traded companies, this is important, a 6% higher shareholder return if they increase expenditure per employee by just $680. So there are legitimate benefits, again, bottom line benefits to an increased investment and increased effort to training initiatives. And so the risks of the status quo are the direct inverse of these things. We're going to fall behind the market in income per employee. We're going to have lower profit margins. We're going to have lower return per shareholder. These are all legitimate concerns that you need to be able to address. And again, identifying where in your organization each of these pieces is going to make sense. And as you start to think through, if you think about the business case, and you start to think carefully through status quo, this is another element of it. If you're looking at a training program that's going to include an online element, either video and e-learning, we're big proponents of both, by the way, but particularly video, the status quo of an ongoing instructor-led centric training program includes a whole range of issues. You got costs with travel and work disruption, and you got reach. If people aren't available on the day a class is held, it's difficult to get them. You got productivity. People have to leave the work site in order to participate in the training program. So again, status quo compared to a project. What are the risks of continuing to train the same way we've trained? Again, these are all part of these elements. And then, if you're starting to think through carefully about the benefits of online training, again, in terms of comparisons between where we are and where we ought to be, the Department of Education has released some fantastic information about the various features of online training compared to the benefits. Jessica's going to clean up a couple of slides here and repost these for us, but so you're going to have access to these. But and then obviously you have a citation to this study. But online training is incredibly powerful, incredibly efficient. This can really make a big impact in the reach, scope, and efficiency of the training that you're talking about doing. Again, thinking through status quo compared to something different. This is a great quote about the status quo. I love this from Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. It's a quote attributed to the Red Queen. It takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that. And that is exactly what it feels like sometimes if you're going to change. And that's a big part of what people see as the risk. We're doing everything we can. We're running around here like our hair's on fire just to keep up with what's going on, and now you're asking us to take on a new training program. Oh my gosh. Well, some of this information, some of this data, these data points that we're providing in terms of increased business benefits, and then especially if you're going to shift the focus from a reliance upon instructor-led to an online element, you can begin to make it seem like that running twice as fast is in fact achievable by making the training more convenient, easier to access. So the status quo becomes a whole lot more dangerous place to stay in some ways in terms of moving your organization where you want to go. All right, Jessica, are there any questions about the status quo before I move in to take the rest of the elements in order then?
No questions, Chris. The only thing I'd add, so if you're thinking about, usually the biggest objection is overcoming that status quo. So you think of it as a progression of two objections to get over. So first, you have to explain why training or more training is going to benefit our organization. So that's the first piece. And then the next piece is why online or why video or why e-learning? Why does that make sense? So many times it's kind of layered. So you have, and I think you showed that in the data slides that you presented, Chris, but I don't know if you said it quite that it was layered in that way.
I did not, and you said it far better than I did in far less time. Thank you. No, that's exactly right. There are two pieces to it. So, no, it's a really great clarification. Thank you. Okay, so the first element of your business case when you're starting to think this through is a scenario analysis. Now, if you go out and do research upon how to present a business case, you're going to find best practices that tell you to present it this way. You're going to present most likely results, then you're going to think through carefully the best case scenario and lay that out, and then you're going to lay out the worst case scenario. So if we do this training, here's what we can expect, here's what might happen if things go extremely well, and here's what might, we're still going to see these benefits, but they're not going to be quite as great, so this is the worst case scenario. Don't do that. I'm going to run contrary to what you're going to find out there in some of the thought leadership, and let me explain why. I'm going to recommend that you present two scenarios, the most likely results and the worst case scenario. Do not present the best case scenario to senior executives. Here's why. Jessica and I are going to do a real quick little role play here. Jessica, I know you're interested in buying a car, and I know you like my car quite a bit, and I'm willing to sell you my car for somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000. So Jessica, what price did you just hear?
Wow, that's a steal. I'd say $4,000. Okay, well I should be able to get him down to $4,000 if that's what he's presenting.
Exactly. Jessica only heard one number. She heard, in her mind, she only heard the best case scenario, $4,000. That's all she heard. And if this was a real negotiation or a real situation where we're talking about a business case, that's the only number that she's going to come with. And that's where she's going to begin her negotiations. It doesn't end there. From my perspective, that's the worst case scenario. That's the lowest price I'm willing to sell at. I wanted to start at 6, but I already said I'd take 4. And your senior executives are going to be the same way. So if you say, well, we're going to do this training, and the most likely results is we're going to see a 5% increase in the bottom line. Best case scenario, if everything goes really well, we'll see 10%. Worst case scenario, even if none of this works, we'll see 2%. What did your chief executive just hear? They heard 10%. And when you come in with 6.5% increase or 5% increase, which is right in line with what you said was going to happen, you're going to get the crud kicked out of you. Well, you said 10%. Where's the 10%? We spent all this money expecting 10%. You said 10%. Right there's the slide. It says 10%. That's all you're going to. You're going to hear that forever.
Are you speaking from experience?
Under-deliver.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, I actually am speaking from experience. Jessica, you've known me now for a number of years. I tend to be very optimistic, and I'm very verbal with that. I tend to be a glasses half full type. So I kind of gravitate to hey, things are going to be really good. It's going to be. I've done that, and I've made that mistake professionally a couple of times, and it has really, really been uncomfortable when you try to backtrack.
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of a natural thing to do. So you're really excited about this program. It has a ton of potential, and you want to communicate that potential. And the highest potential is the best case scenario, but it's not necessarily the best thing for you to communicate because you're automatically going to be held to that, and anything less than that is going to seem like you didn't achieve your goal. So I think it's an important kind of aspect and perspective to look at.
Yeah, you're spot on. I'm going to give you a real personal example that Jessica and I are both living right now with the Biz Library marketing. With marketing, one of the great things about marketing, it's also one of the bad things about marketing, is we measure every single thing every single day. We measure every web visitor, everything gets measured. So we have to do this scenario analysis when we're putting together our plan for each year. So we were putting together our plan for the marketing year we're just about to wrap up. I was asked to predict, how many leads can you guys get us for next year? So I went through this, and I had in my mind what the most likely outcome was. I had a hoped for best case scenario and a worst case scenario. Well, which case do you think I built our projections on? It was on the most likely results. I never, ever talked about the best case scenario. I just slipped that in my hip pocket, and I didn't even really talk about that with my team very much. But you know what numbers we're actually delivering? we're actually hitting our best case scenario. But if I had laid that out early on, what would be happening right now is we would be just right about on target. What's happening is we're coming in about 10% over our most likely results. So think about what that's done. Do we look like heroes and everybody's doing great and everybody gets a big pat on the back and we get to celebrate every month and every quarter? Or do we just eke by barely hitting our numbers? Which situation would you rather be in? I'd rather be in the best case scenario deal. And if that doesn't work, you're never going to be as far off as if you start off with most likely results. So when you're doing your scenario analysis on a learning and training program, always, 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 always focus on the most likely results. Pitch that. Focus on that. These are the things that are most likely to happen. We're going to see these outcomes with this level of participation, with this type of marketing effort, with this type of manager support. That's what to focus on. Okay? Jessica, that makes sense?
Yep, makes sense to me.
It should, because we're living it every day, but yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So then the next piece of the business case is the cause-effect analysis. So now we know what the scenario looks like, and we've outlined the program. We understand what all the elements are. And now what we have to do is really begin to dive into this and start to lay out and link each element of the program to a specific business benefit, okay? So the types of things that we have to, and these are the three sort of high-level things we want to make sure we're focused on. We want to make sure we focus on how we improve the employee's ability to perform. We want to make sure that that improvement has a positive impact on the business and that that impact results in a financial benefit to the company. So it's a very straight line analysis when we think about the cause and effect of this. So if we are doing, let's just say hypothetically that we're going to do training for our HR professionals that are engaged in employee relations. But for whatever reason, we've had issues with complaints or actions being filed with the EEOC. So we want to make sure that our HR professionals are better trained to intervene earlier in the process. So we want to make sure that the training program improves those employees' ability to do that, to perform well in that situation. We want to link that improvement to a positive impact on the business, a reduction in claims, a reduction in business disruption, a reduction in litigation and legal fees. We want to make sure that that impact results in a financial benefit for the company, so cost reduction and improved productivity. So that's the way to think it through, cause, effect. Cause, effect. And that's the three ways you link it. Real straightforward. Don't make this complicated. A lot of organizations do, and just don't let that happen to you. This is a great way to kind of think about it. And when you start to think about the cause and effect, I love this corporate dilemma over here. What if we train them and they leave? And then the CEO says, what if we don't and they stay? That's really another piece of this cause and effect, and the risks of the status quo piece that we're kind of getting into here. Jessica put a superb infographic in here for us. When we're investing $1,500 or more per employee per year, we report, big increases in profits. So, this is just a really, really great way to begin to, again, just really re-emphasize these pieces of data that we've been referring to. And again, when you're getting into this cause effect, keep these business benefits right there. And that's exactly what we're getting at. We want to make sure that what we are doing is focusing on performance improvement. One of the things that you'll see organizations do over and over and over is perform a needs analysis. And I've done them before. You go to a training, a manager of a department, say, we need training on, blah, 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 whatever it is. And so you do the training, but nobody's ever sat down and really thought carefully about the performance gaps. Which areas of performance need to be improved in order to maximize the business impact in areas? And that's really where this cause-effect analysis can you can really, really hone in on that by staying focused on that. The other piece of this is to ensure that what you're doing as you're working your way through that is when you get to that last element of that cost, the benefit analysis is to be focusing on exactly what that benefit is. Is it improvement in quality, improved effectiveness? What's the specific job impact that leads to business results? And stay away from sort of the traditional way that, and I was taught to do this too, the traditional ROI measurement of what we're trying to get out of training. You want to really stay focused on the business impact. This is a great illustration that we wanted to provide for you that kind of gets to that. So this is the value of training on writing skills. One of the things that's very hard to measure sometimes is soft skills impact. So this is a sort of a use case on how to get to that. So what we set up here is writing skills for account representatives and customer service reps. So what we were trying to do here is help an organization turn around, reduce the turnaround time on bug fixes from an average of 21 days to 10 days. And there's a cost savings associated with that of $50 a day, okay? So what we're trying to do, the value that we expect to gain is going to be measured by using the average revenue loss for each day the service is down for customers due to sloppy or unclear written explanations of bugs to the programmers. So what's happening here, the business process that's going on, is these individuals, the account representatives and the customer service reps, aren't writing clear enough. Their writing skills aren't very good, so they're providing unclear explanations of the bugs to the programmers. The programmers are having to return the reports for clarification, and it's creating this delay in getting the bugs fixed. So the training cost for HR is $90,000. To bring the reps offline to train them is 50 reps times $600 a day per rep, and the total cost was $390,000. The impact, less than 10% of written reports were returned for rewrites in 6 months after the program. The average bug fix was reduced from 21 days to 12 days, and the total number of bugs affected was 1,210. So the total value gained was $544,000 on a $390,000 program. That's how you link a specific business problem to a specific business benefit. That's it, okay? So again, you're going to get a chance to download these slides so you can study this, but it's that type of thinking, that a focus on business benefit, that value gained, that's what we're trying to get to. Okay, which again leads to these last two pieces of our business case, which is the key performance indicators for each benefit. So what is the key KPI for the business problem you're trying to solve? So we've identified the program. We understand the most likely outcome. We've identified the cause and effect analysis for each element of the program, so we know what success will look like. And now we're going to explain to the business professionals throughout the organization how we know we've been successful. How are we going to measure success? What will improved performance look like, and how will we know? I mean, and that really is I know that seems just like almost overly simplified, but that really is it. That's the key to this part of the business case. Everything you've done up till now has been identifying the problem, framing out the solution, understanding how the solution is going to move the needle in various parts of your organization, that cause-effect analysis. So now we know what success is going to look like. Now we close the circle by asking, how are we going to know? What will success look like? What will improved performance look like? And how will we know it? And if you keep your analysis that straightforward and keep it relentlessly that straightforward, you're going to make building this business case much more attractive and easier for yourselves to put together. And it's going to be much more logical as you build it and write it and present it to the senior executives, which leads right to this last point, goal alignment. Every organization has strategic goals. Now, hopefully they've been set well, and they're measurable and specific and time-bound and attainable, all that SMART goal acronym. But the thing that we frequently leave out, and I've my old consulting world used to do a lot of consulting around setting strategic goals and helping organizations figure out what they wanted to do and how they were going to get there. And we used to talk about alignment a lot. The problem for a lot of organizations is that's sort of where alignment ends, is in the conference room and at the conversation level. But goal alignment is really a process of continuous adjustment to keep the parts in the correct relative position. And that's the piece that you have to really get committed to as you're building this business case. So you're going to have to prove and show and illustrate that the outcomes that you're aiming at will result in bottom line benefits that are supportive of organizational goals. So is it to gain market share? Is it to increase revenue? Is it to increase profit margin? Is it to increase customer retention, increase quality, increase innovation? Doesn't matter what the organizational goal is. Make sure that your program is designed at improving performance in areas that will actually improve areas that will impact those organizational goals. And when you are writing this part of your business case and thinking carefully about this part of your business case, keep this in mind. You must include a commitment to continually adjusting your employee development and employee training program so that it keeps the relative parts of your organization aligned correctly in their correct relative position so that attainment of the goals is possible. So for instance, let's say innovation is a goal. We want to improve the pace with which we deliver new products. So we want to make sure that we improve the products that are out there. We want to get one new product to market in the next year. So each month you're tracking what's going on and you find out, well, we're really not improving the existing products. So where's our development falling flat? What can we do to increase this? And if you're looking at it every week, every 2 weeks, every month, and tracking performance and seeing the areas where that innovation piece is falling short, you can intervene much more effectively than if you're waiting 6 months or a year to look back and all of a sudden you haven't had an innovative product, you haven't improved the products that are out there. So this has got to be a part of this. So you have to think carefully about how you're going to build into your program this process whereby you can maintain, continual tracking and adjustment of employee development and your employee training as the year goes along to make sure that you keep everybody in their correct position and people get the guidance and training that they need to actually be successful. This is a hugely important piece of this. All right, Jessica, we're in really good shape on time, but I do want to pause briefly and make sure we cover any questions we have about the 5 elements of the business case.
We got a good question in from Deanna. It actually leads us into this next piece of the webinar. So she asked, getting leadership to make decisions is like pulling teeth. They want to do training but just aren't willing to implement anything. So how do I get them to act?
Nitrous oxide usually works well.
It's funny that you said that. I was like, I'm thinking, well, as long as they're not dentists, right?
It's a really great question, though, because it gets right back to the idea of the status quo. It's like, one of the things that happens over and over and over in organizations is this, sort of paralysis by analysis. People keep asking for more information and more information and more information, thinking that, if I've got more information, I can make a more informed choice. When what's really happening is they're kind of masking indecisiveness, or they're masking a lack of confidence, or who knows what's being masked. But it is the most maddening part of organizations, this inability to make a dadgum decision. It's like, look, just do something, which kind of gets back to the idea of alignment. Just, you got to do something, because if you do something, we can make adjustments. It doesn't have to be right every time, and that's the beauty of getting committed to continuous adjustments. Okay, so how do you get senior management to move? That's the question. I'll get off my soapbox about alignment now. But this is where having this data makes such a difference. One of the things that, when I used to work in the consulting world, we used to go in and talk to people, and we never had these kind of data tools before. We used to be able to come in and say, well, if you do this, we think these things are going to happen. Here's what we believe will happen. We've had 2 clients that have had better results because of this, but we didn't have access to these sort of wonderful broad market surveys that we have today that link learning culture to innovation, that link learning culture to profitability. We don't have the information that link an increase of $680, per employee to these types of improvements in earnings per share and profitability per employee. I mean, pick your metric. They're out here. And that's sort of the point of some of these great data points, Jessica, that you put together for us in this webinar, which you did a great job of finding these things. And that's, they're here. This is no longer a mystery, linking employee training and development to bottom line benefits, and that's what you have to be able to do. There's a good chance, if your senior executives just won't move, just won't do it, is they've never really seen a business case built the way we're talking about building it for you today. They've never seen a direct connection between sales training and these elements and this type of bottom line benefit. And that's what you have to do. And sometimes it can't be, well, we want to implement an employee training program and here's how it's going to improve the company. You may have to get really specific. We want to improve the ability of our sales team to close transactions more quickly. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's why it's important, and here's the expected benefit of that. You may have to get that specific to begin to move the needle, to get your senior executives to bite. And it may be necessary to do something very similar to that, get them to bite off on a targeted, narrowly defined, but important business challenge. Then when you've got a success there, you go in and tackle the next business challenge. After you've had a couple of successes on narrowly defined business challenges, now you've established some credibility, and you can get them to move more easily on a broader-based employee training challenge. That's really how to do it. And that's really what this is about. One of these barriers, Jessica's right, it's one of the barriers to program adoption. What are the costs, what are the value? That's what you're trying to explain to these executives who are unwilling to move forward and implement. Okay, yeah, it sounds great. The partner looks terrific, the content looks really good. But we get this all the time. Well, will the employees actually use it? This is really true if online training is new to an organization. But will the employees use it? Will they participate? Well, think about creative ways that you can prove that employees will, in fact, use it. Pilot the program. Have a test. If you had access to a free trial, I mean, prove that your employees will use it. Yeah, we had 10 employees go through it. Here's what they said about it. Is the learning initiative relevant to our business needs? And again, this gets right back to the alignment idea. Well, of course it is. We're going to provide training on communication, on sales, on customer service. I mean, these are all business problems that we have. I mean, that again gets back to the vocabulary. You have to speak the language of the C-suite in order to overcome those barriers. That's how you do it. Jessica, did that help with that question?
Yeah, it did. Thanks.
Okay. So these are Jessica put this together, and again, going back to Jessica's background, she worked as a client consultant for us here for a number of years before she joined my team. Jessica, I'm going to let you actually present this because you've got a lot more direct experience with these specific objections than I do. So if you don't mind, talk us through a couple of these.
Sure, Chris. So these are it's 5 kind of common sources of resistance or barriers to getting a program up and running. So you have one, you have no help. So basically you are an HR program, you're an HR department of one, or you're a training and development department of one, and you just don't have any really help or support. So some ways you can get around this is, create an advisory committee. So these are people that you're going to go to, and they're going to be your advocates. They're going to help you understand how your program is going to affect the organization overall. So these could be maybe senior managers across different departments, and you can use them to help become champions for your program and also help you make sure that the training and development initiatives that you're presenting are going to be valuable and important to them.
Hey, Jessica?
Yeah.
Quick question. Myra posted, you posted from Myra, what are some innovative ways to improve employee participation? You could have some employees participate in that advisory committee to create advocates and coaches there too, couldn't you?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, so one of your biggest, well, at least what I found in working with clients is that if you can identify employees in your organization that may not necessarily be in a leadership role by title, but they're definitely leaders in your organization based on their influence and information that they have with other employees. So who do people always go to for questions? They're kind of that go-to person if someone needs help with something. So identify those people, and those can be great people to have on your advisory committee or have as your training and development marketing team. So these people that already have the influence across your organization can then help you to get people to participate and get on board. They can help you share success stories. So if you have a monthly newsletter or a weekly email communication, why not include short quotes or testimonials about how some of the training and development that you're providing has helped them be more successful in their role, or help them help a client better, or something really tangible that they can hold on to and see, okay, that will work for me.
Yeah, these are great suggestions, and these are all ideas that will work really well on every single one of these resistance points. I mean, if you think about a testimonial, you can cover the not enough time. Well, hey, I could access this whenever I wanted. I had access on my phone. I had access on all kinds of things. I mean, this is great stuff. I mean, these are great suggestions and ideas. And again, these are, these aren't, made up. These are from experience. Jessica, there's a really good question from Alice that you posted there. I think this would be a good time to take it before we cover the actual elements of a tangible business case, and then we can wrap up and maybe take a few more questions before we finish up.
All right, sounds good. So Alice asks, what do you do when management compares our system to competitors? They argue that competitors seem to operate without online training.
Well, I think you invite that comparison. I mean, I would love to have that comparison come at me. That would just be fantastic, because I would put an online training program, and especially ours. By the way, Jessica's going to tell you a little bit more about our solution in a minute, but I would put an online training program or a program that includes an online element up against a program that doesn't include any day of the week. And Alice asked these questions. Okay, so what happens when an employee's sick? How do they make up the content? What happens to an employee who's off-site, who lives and works away from home, remote employees? What happens when they've got a brand new product that comes out and you have to get content to them quickly? What happens, and how do they address various learning styles? How do they get content to people who would rather watch a video or look at content on a mobile device like an iPad or their phone? I mean, you can't do any of those things if you don't have a learning platform. And then ask management, how would you look up how to tie a bow tie? If you don't know how to tie a bow tie, what would you do? The answer is going to be, I'd Google it and probably watch a YouTube video. And guess what? That's what your employees are doing when they want to learn something new right now. They're Googling a question and probably watching a video about how to do it. Well, guess what? That's the learning solution that they expect at work too. If you want to provide learning the same way that our employees are learning and taking in information away from work, we need to have an online solution. And that's really how to get to that. Okay, so I want to wrap up my part of the presentation with this short explanation of, so we've talked about the elements of a business case, so you've gotten all this pulled together. So how do you physically present it to your C-suite? And it's pretty straightforward. You start off with a one-page executive summary. This is a objective sentence and bullet points on each key element. Your executives really just want to top line it. I just want to see quickly what it is I need to understand. Give them bullet points. The next element is a description of the current situation. Again, the status quo, here's where we are. And then the next element is the proposed solution, an explanation of what you are looking to do, including a simple statement of each expected benefit. And then the fourth piece of the business case is the business benefits. This should all be sounding familiar, isn't it? And this is including the gains and costs of each element with a big emphasis on those business benefits. And then the conclusion, again, a one page. So this is a little bit more of a narrative, not so much bullet points, but just a sentence or two on each one. Your executives are going to read 2 pages of this to start with, the summary and the conclusion. Everything else they'll read later if they like what they see on the summary and conclusion. You need the supporting material. They will probably never read it, but they're just going to glance at it just to make sure you've done your homework. But that's it. That's how you package all this work up. Jessica, anything to add to that?
No, we did get a question, though, from Sam. They ask, what are some ways to gather the information needed for the risk of inaction across all aspects of the organization? So I think that was included in which one was it? Risk of inaction. Oh, under 3. So explanation of the solution, include a simple statement of each expected benefit and the risk assessment of status quo.
Yeah, well, this...
It's where that advisory committee could come in hand, too. I mean, because it's hard to be completely embedded and understand the challenges across every department, you know, and each employee's role and what challenges they're facing. So that could be an easy way to get some of that information. But go ahead, Chris.
No, Jessica, that's a super idea. The other is just competitive research. You know, what are your competitors doing, and where are we vis-a-vis the competitors? We've got a little ebook on a trip down the rabbit hole, the risks of the status quo. I'd grab that. That's got some advice in there too. Jessica, I'm going to be quiet. You've got some wrap-up closing business for us to get through, and then if we have time, we'll do another question or two.
All right, sounds good, Chris. Again, just put any questions into the question box on the right-hand side of your screen. They should see that within the control panel. Up on my screen now, you should see some sample courses. These courses and more are all included in the BizLibrary collection. So BizLibrary provides more than 7,000 videos and e-learning courses covering every business topic area. So it's really an ideal solution meeting the training needs of your employees across the organization. So if you'd like to do a free trial, you can try out any of these resources. You'll get access to these 7 full courses immediately after the webinar today. I'll just put up a quick poll question and let me know if you are interested. Again, I'll send out a link to these free courses directly after the webinar today, and you can also do a free 30-day no obligation trial as well. All right, so Chris, this next question we got in is from Alethea. I apologize if I mispronounced your name, but she asked, how do you suggest launching a brand new training program and learning management system with the most effective and smooth implementation? Chris, I think you may still be on mute.
I'm sorry, I was still muted. I just started to answer too, and I realized you didn't hear me. Sorry about that. Well, that's a really super question, and there is going to be no single one answer that is going to be a one-size-fits-all. So I'm going to apologize in advance for the answer that I'm going to give you, because it's going to depend a lot on your learning culture, where your organization is in terms of their receptiveness to a technology platform, okay? So with those 2 caveats in mind, first thing you have to do is you've got to build support for the change with your frontline managers and supervisors. Start there. Make sure they're all on board. Do whatever you can. I mean, whatever it takes to get them invested in it and supportive. If you have to buy them coffee, donuts work great, whatever it takes. Get your frontline managers invested in it, get them to see the benefit, get them to participate. If you can get your frontline managers to buy into what you're doing, you have really got a great chance to have a successful program. From there, communicate to employees using your frontline managers in normal communication channels. Make sure you emphasize the benefit to each specific employee. So again, use all the channels, make sure it's specific to the various targeted groups, and you've got a really good chance of success. But start with your frontline managers and supervisors.
All right. Great questions today. I'll go ahead and wrap up. For those of you that are attending for HRCI credit. I'm putting a link in the chat panel on the right-hand side of your screen that you can download the certificate. I'll also email out the certificate in a a follow-up email that you'll receive within 24 hours. For those of you that requested a free trial, you'll receive that email within the next half an hour. That'll include a link to those courses and then set up for your trial. Hope you'll join us for a future webinar. We have coming up next week, we have Onboard Not Overboard, Accelerating New Hire Training, and the following week, Employee Training, Why Short Video Gets Big Results. So these webinars every week, they're HRCI approved and free to attend. So if you want to sign up or see the schedule for upcoming events, just visit us at bizlibrary.com/webinars. All right, thanks again for attending with us today, and thank you, Chris, for presenting.
Yeah, thanks everybody for attending. We really appreciate it and hope you have a great week and weekend.